on a Kenya Airways flight back to Nairobi, where she landed some minutes after 4 p.m. The three were headed to Tanzania at the invitation of the East Africa Law Society. Now, according to Karua, she arrived in Tanzania at 9 a.m. and an immigration official at the airport referred her passport to the supervisor. The said supervisor kept her waiting for an hour as she consulted with her superiors, who later denied her entry into Tanzania.
We were denied entry. I particularly was asked why I was going to Tanzania. And I said I was a guest of the East Africa Law Society. At that stage, the immigration officer took my passport, told me to wait. After a while, he told me to go to the supervisor. And there is fear in this government of our dear Mama Suluhu about people who may be interested in the politically motivated cases against Tundu Lissu. Aluta continua.
Aluta continua.
If we can be detained and deported because they know that we are there to attend as observers the case against Tundu Lissu tomorrow, it means that they are violating the right to a fair public trial.
I, for example, believe the professions, the architects, the lawyers, should have the right of establishment so that a Kenyan advocate can open offices in Dar es Salaam. But Mother Karua has been mistreated today. We stand in solidarity with her. Of course, we wish the people, the great people of the United Republic of Tanzania well, even as they prepare for elections, which are later in the year. But we want to say that as gifts.
So you see, you got to count your blessings. There are countries where what we are talking about here on air cannot be spoken about. TZ, Tanzania, the only thing they can speak openly is entertainment. That's the only stuff they can talk about openly without being censured. They can talk about the diamonds of this world, whoever's of this world in the entertainment industry. But when they get to politics, you touch a nerve and you might as well even disappear. So let's count our blessings. At the same time, legislators from the Orange Democratic Movement and the United Democratic Alliance, that is ODM and UDA respectively, have strongly criticized former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua's remarks about potential violence after the 2027 general election. In a recent interview with a YouTube channel, Gachagua argued that if the election is messed with and President William Ruto forced on the people, the country would witness more violence than recorded in the 2007 election, where over 1,000 people were killed. Interior CS Kipchumba Murkomen warned Gachagua not to think he's above the law.
Wale ambao wanatishia taifa letu kwamba wao wasiposhinda katika siasa tutarudi kwa vita na fujo. Mimi nataka kuhakikishia Wakenya na wana Trans Nzoia wote, Wakenya wa kabila mbalimbali, dini mbalimbali, wale wanatoka sehemu mbalimbali. I want to give you my personal assurance. Musitishwe na wanasiasa. Our security is firm. Our security sector will be firm. And as your Minister for Security, I will be very, very firm. I will be very firm. I will be very firm. Mimi najua ile shida ilitupatia 207 hapa Trans Nzoia. Najua sehemu zingine za Rift Valley ile shida ilitupatia. Ndugu na ndugu walipigana, watu wameishi pamoja kwa siku nyingi. I promise you, we will never go back there ever again. Haiwezekani. Na kwa hivyo kama kanisa tukiendelea kuomba, mtuombee sisi, tuendelee na ujaziri. Na tusiogope mtu yoyote. Unajua kuna watu wanatutisha, wanafikiria they are now above the law. Wanafikiria hawatashikwa. Wanafikiria hawatafungwa. I am going to tell you, under our watch, this country is not going to condone anybody who wants to ban this nation. We are going to do everything under the sun to make sure that for this period we serve this nation, we must keep our country safe. Ndio tukipeana baton to another person, tunapeana a safe and secure country yenye iko under rule of law.
At the same time, the Deputy President Kithure Kindiki warned that Gachagua was a warmonger who should be shunned by all Kenyans.
Vita. Nataka niwahakikishie wananchi wote wa Kenya kwa niaba ya serikali na kwa niaba ya Rais William Ruto ya kwamba uchaguzi mkuu wa mwaka 2027 utakuwa wa huru na haki. As government, we will go out of our way to make sure that the election and the people's choices for all seats, the election is peaceful, democratic, free and fair, because that is what the Constitution demands of us. And I also want to ask the people who are prophesying violence to warn them that our country has gone through very painful moments in the past because of political violence, and we would not want our country to go back there. We cannot allow incitement to violence by any leader, not now, not in the future, because this country learned the hard lesson in 2007. Na wale wanahubiri vita waambiwe ya kuwa hakutakuwa na vita. I promise you there will be no war. There will be no violence. There will be no violence in 2007. There will be no violence at any other time in the future. We learned our lessons, never again. Nchi yetu itakuwa ya amani, tutakuwa watu ya demokrasia, na tutaendelea na mambo ya uchaguzi, lakini mambo ya vita haitawezekana tena. Ndugu wa nchi moja, wa taifa moja kupigana kwa sababu ya mambo ya siasa na uchaguzi. We will not allow it to happen. Na hakuna tofauti ya wale wanahubiri na kutabiri vita na wale magaidi wa Al-Shabaab na wale bandits wa North Rift. Wote ni hatari kwa usalama wa taifa. Anybody preaching violence and prophesying violence and threatening war and violence is as dangerous as the bandits of the North Rift and as the terrorists of the Lamu Enclave and Northern.
Now, other leaders from different regions and parties, by the way, also called on the government to take action against the former deputy president.
What happened in 2007? Niliona damu iliyomwagwa katika Rift Valley. We do not want to go back there. Na Mheshimiwa Kipchumba Murkomen, wewe uko hapa kwa ground na unasikia ground. Leo katika Nandi tumekuambia hatutaki fujo katika taifa hii.
Shetani ashindwe, mkabila ashindwe. Ameanzisha chama ya kudivide community. Hiyo chama tunasema ishindwe.
Mumekubali kuunga serikali ya broad based.
That's the reason why we are even in this broad based government, is because we want the country to be stable. We want a stable country. So any leader should never pronounce matters of violence.
But Rigathi Gachagua is just reminding us that again is planning for violence. I want to tell Rigathi Gachagua, there is no space for you and your violence.
It is the responsibility of every Kenyan citizen to be able to support and to be able to foster peace and unity in this country. I want to remind Mr. Rigathi Gachagua, if he did not feel the pain of post-election violence in 2007, the people of Kenya, I included, lost people, and we feel the pain. And we cannot allow him to take us back there.
Kenya hii tumeienzi. It is for all Kenyans. When wako Kapsabet, when wako Mombasa, when wako wapi. And we need to condemn such kind of leadership.
On Mr. Gachagua. And I think the Minister for Interior is here. I think the job is at your desk. That we need to actually to tell them that mwenye anaweza kutoa kuharibu nchi, he should be told. And Former Vice President Saitoti alisema the country is
Well, Gachagua wasn't taking that lying down, because the Democracy for Citizens Party leader, Gachagua, says his statement on the 2027 general election was twisted, stating that he did not assert that there will be post-election violence. Speaking at Christ Joy Christian Church in Ndonyo Shege in Murang'a County, Gachagua clarified that he was only raising concerns by Kenyans that President Ruto should not try any election malpractices. He urged the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission to remain ethical, adding that history has shown that where there is contested election, there can be violence.
Sema juzi, na mimi naona they are trying to change the context of what I said. Mimi sijasema Kenya itakuwa na fujo. Mimi nimesema, nikisikiza wa Kenya vile wanasema wewe William Ruto usijaribu kuiba uchaguzi, na nimeuliza IBC, please be patriotic, msiweke hii nchi kwa shida, because history has shown when there is a contested election there can be violence, and it has happened, and we must refer to history. That's why I said we saw what happened in 2007. So please, IBC, make sure you don't create a situation where we can have a recurrence of what happened in 2007. Because if it happens this time the way people are talking, it can be worse. Na mimi, it is my civic duty as a leader to caution the country. Siku tumeleta finance bill 2024, mimi nienda kwa rais nikamwambia, hii finance bill usisukume, Wakenya wataki, watakataa na wataleta shida. Akasukuma, nikaenda kwa cabinet, na iko kwa minute. Kwa cabinet yote watu 22 na rais, mimi ndio nilipinga. Na nikasema yoko kwa minute. Nikasema hii kitu italeta fujo Kenya. Hii watoto wanaitwa Gen Z hawatakubali. Na ilifanyika. There was violence, there was unrest, there were chaos. I had cautioned the president and the cabinet. So what we are saying is, we have a civic duty as leaders. If we see a situation that can cause unrest in the country, we must say so. That does not mean that we are advocating for anybody to fight anybody. We are saying we have seen it before. It can happen again. So, Mr. Yesa, where? I want to remind you that when the Gen Zs were killed, you are the Minister for Interior. You supervised, you directed and executed the killing of young people. You have Gen Z blood in your hands. So when you say that there cannot be violence in this country, you are speaking from both ends of your mouth, because wewe mwenyewe ndio ulifanya hiyo.
All right. Now, I'm very sure we've done this before. We've done this story before. And I'm very sure if I even just showed you the picture, you would tell me the script. Once again, this year, you know the market that is called Gikomba. What is so synonymous with Gikomba apart from second-hand clothes? Fire. It happened again. Watch this.
Hii moto ya leo imetushitua. Maanake imetendeka siku ambayo ni ya Sunday, na mara mingi sisi traders ambao mnatuona huwa tunachukua stock on Saturdays ndio tunjiprepare kuuza on Monday. So hii moto imetukuta kama kila mtu amechukua stock. Kuna wale walikuwa wamechukua stock ya 100,000, 300 mamilioni.
Hii eneo hapa hivi kulikuwa na stores, 2 floors of stores, na weekend tuna stock viatu mingi. Kwa hivyo tulikuwa a lot of shoes ilikuwa hapa, more than an estimate more than 5 million of shoes zilichomekea hapa, because if you calculate a bale ni karibu 8,000 na kulikuwa na maelfu ya mabales hapa.
Kama serikali inaweza hata tujengea soko mahali hatutawahi chomekewa, watujengea, sababu mimi hii ni miaka 4 kuchomekewa, unabaki bila kitu. Na ile pesa tunafanyanga kazi huku nao ni ya maroni, ingine ni ya Sairok. Tumeishi tu kuamshwa usiku ati kunachomeka. Wafanyikazi wenye tunafanya kazi na wao tulinunua mizigo jana, ndio next week tuwe tunauza. Hakuna kitu tumeokoa hata nini, na tuna watoto shule, tuna watoto university, na tunalia machozi, tunasido watoto watasoma na nini?
Now, there's something that was said in the course of this week by Anglican Archbishop Jackson Ole Sepit, who criticized the economic empowerment programs in sub-counties, calling them politically driven and misplaced. He was speaking at Limuru Girls High School and urged the government to redirect funds from token projects to crucial needs like school capitation. He also condemned rising political violence and talks, warning it threatens national stability, and called on Kenyans to protect democracy.
So the man gave names to all the livestock, the birds in the sky, and all the wild animals.
Handouts will never change anybody's life. They will get and finish it in the evening with the leaguers and other bad things. But when you teach people how to work and make sure that we have markets for our crops, I think what the government need to be putting all the money, being spent in these barasas and even these mini campaigns that we see around the country, be it of the opposition of the government, is translate that money to our schools. Now our principal are crying because the capitation is not enough. They cannot keep our students for as long as we wish them to be in school. We want the funding model of the universities to work. We want the healthcare system to work, but we also want the agriculture sector that the government should put infrastructure in place so that every farmer will have opportunity to take their produce to their farm in time, because there is a
All right, in a couple of minutes, we'll be looking at some of the things that are happening in our newspapers. And I think I will just start shortly. If you look at the Daily Nation, I'll just read it, then we go for a short break and come on to this. They are saying that Gachagua is facing arrest. So the gentleman, anaweza shikwa lale ndani. Let's go for a short break. When I come back, I tell you more about it. All right, welcome back. Now, you remember the conversation, some of the sentiments and statements that were made by the former Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua? Well, they're now saying he may be arrested because of those statements. It says President Ruto's closest allies, the Deputy President and Interior Cabinet Secretary, sustained the messaging throughout the weekend that former DP Rigathi Gachagua is not untouchable, and that he will be arrested for alleged incitement as he stepped up his blistering attacks on the government. And then the second page shows CCTV footage implicates suspect in Treasury official's murder. Osinde's body was found floating in River Kuja, Migori County, 4 days after he was reported missing. And now, here's a story that now answers quite a number of things. They were initially just rumors and stories hanging in there as people, including myself, questioning where this young man used to get his money. If you're wondering who I'm talking about Mr. Alex Apoko, aka Ringtone. And now there's another Nairobi politician, her name is Agnes Kagure. Now the strangest thing about these two and how they're operating is that it's alleged they claim properties of dead foreigners. Foreigners were in the country and then they died, and probably their families, didn't know where the property was. These guys have been taking it. And that's the reason why the likes of Apoko Rington, who cannot show you one business where he buys or sells anything, yet he has a house in Karen and many other properties. By the way, let me inform you, and I'm not saying this to brag, Apoko used to come to Rafton's home or house in Umoja Estate way back. And I was a neighbor to Rafton. And I remember the first vehicle that Apoko came with was a Nissan B14. It was dark gray. And he drove it and asked for 400 shillings to fuel it. That's a story for another day. Maybe I shouldn't have told you that. Well, we'll arrest you. Ruto officials tell Rigathi Gachagua and Nyoro. These two have united against Ruto. How tax relief scam has cost households. Central Bank of Kenya is now warning banks they risk fines if they don't lower lending rates. NAT urge MPs to restore 62 billion cut from education. Gideon protests police raid, closure of farm. This is Ken Koft, CFS, legal officer Evan Odongo addresses journalists. Company linked to KANU chairman Gideon Moi has protested a raid by police and Kenya Railways officials which stalled its operations. Kuna dawa, kuna dawa, kuna dawa. Omanyala bounces back to form. Africa's fastest man, Ferdinand Omanyala of Kenya, is gearing up for blockbuster performance in the Rabat Diamond League this 25th of May, breaking his own African 150 meters record at the Addis Atlantic City Games on Saturday night in Georgia, USA. All right, that's the nation. Then the Standard, captured justice. Legal experts and political analysts are raising concern about a growing trend in the justice system where individuals who break the law but sing the regime's praises appear to have a smooth run in the corridors of justice. In contrast, President William Ruto's critics are treated more harshly. Observers now say that the legal system is being weaponized against dissenters. One of the person who said that is lawyer Getobu Imanyara. Democracy held hostage by hired hooligans ahead of 2027. True, and there's a picture of some of those hooligans. Then save us from Saudi Arabia nightmare. I don't know why people keep on going to Saudi Arabia. It's just a strange situation because these guys, they mistreat any person who does not look like them. These Arabs from Saudi Arabia, they are so heinous. They mistreat Kenyans, but CS Mutua still sends Kenyans there. Makalatas. Kalonzo condemns Karua's deportation from TZ, calls for unity against oppression. Kenya's risky slide into legalized repression as politics undermines the judiciary. Inside secondary school shakeup in preparation for CBC transition. The back page of the Standard, Kenya police open 6 points lead in a title race. And now let's take a look at the Star newspaper. Treasury, to avoid costly loans, opt for pension cash. I hope they'll return that cash. Iron Lady Karua runs into TZ iron wall. And then Raila Odinga has dismissed his brother and insists ODM is not part of the government. It's not part of the government. Kenya Railways reclaims key property linked to Moi family. Bank stocks in command. Africa mega steals show. State resorts to pension banks and insurance to fund roads, health projects. SACCOs asked to invest in better products to compete with banks. If you want to read more stories, we've got stories in there. Just because you can borrow does not mean you should. Then the back page of the Star, Advantage, police, law enforcers gun down Talanta to bolster maiden title aspiration. Na hivyo ndivyo Mangaset inasema. Now, one of the things that I think you and I need to consider and really take seriously is our country. We got great stuff in this country. We have peace that we enjoy. We may have rogue politicians and people who speak as though, you know, after they speak, the smell that comes into the room is that of a toilet because they've really spoken trash. But one thing you and I as Christians can do, this country has been given to us. It has been given to us, and what happens here is what we allow to happen. And that's what we need to calm down and realize. There is nothing that happens in our country that we have not allowed. At least that's what the scripture says. It says, whatsoever you shall bind or refuse to permit to operate here on earth shall be bound in heaven. And whatsoever you shall lose, whatsoever you shall permit to operate here on earth shall be permitted in heaven. It's very, very, very key. So we have to know that we are responsible for what's happening in this country as the church, and we need to take our place. In fact, I read a scripture this morning, and it was Isaac telling Esau after Jacob had supplanted him and taken his promise, and Isaac told Esau that the day you get tired of his yoke, of his chains, you shall break them. So we need to get tired. Then we can break the chains. Ndio, leo ni Monday by the way. At 11:30 you have Gatuzi, and then at 2 p.m. the scoreboard. Tutajua hawa polisi wamepiga hizo matimu zingine kivipi na ni timu gani za UK zinaendelea. Ama ligi lisha Alan. Alan anasema bado timu yake ni matope kabisa. Wanafungango kila mahali ni kama volleyball. And a claim team yake ni Arsenal. His team is normally the one that wins. Meaning if Manchester wins, he claims Manchester is his team. If Arsenal wins, he claims Arsenal is his team. Alice on the other side, Alice and football are like East and West. There's a game she loves playing. Do you know of a game called Ajua? Ajua ni ile, there's a small table, kona mashimo. So, munashika two pebbles, unaanza kukaunt, unaziweka hapo, inafika mwisho, unachukua. So that's the game she plays. She's a very young person, but she plays games zingine very, very weird. We need to organize as the men council to have a meeting with the husband Anyway, do have yourself a lovely morning and God bless you.